Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the founder of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I do appreciate you being with me. Let me remind you, as of yesterday, I'm only 200 subscribers away from having 12,000. So let me ask you, please be a part of the number of that 200 that puts me all up to 12,000. Just hit the subscribe button. Once again, doesn't cost a dime, doesn't cost a penny, doesn't cost anything. And I really do appreciate it. All right. So, yesterday, I looked at the concept that is found throughout the Old Testament and the New as well. That every constituent element of biblical eschatology, which, by the way, results in what? The new creation, which was foreshadowed by Shemeni Atzerat. All right? Every constituent element, pardon me, of eschatology, coming of the Lord, judgment, resurrection, kingdom, salvation, new creation, is inextricably bound up in Old Testament prophecy with prophecies of the destruction of Jerusalem. Now, I read for you yesterday Isaiah 65, and it is commonly believed to be the critical, the foundational Old Testament prophecy of the new creation. Well, in a broad sense, it is. That's kind of the umbrella term, right? The new creation would arrive at the time of the coming of the Lord. The new creation would arrive at the time of the judgment. The new creation would arrive at the time of the resurrection. All of those are givens. No, there's no controversy about that. So the new creation is the ultimate goal. But here's what you've got to see. This is what is so powerful. When I began to very first share this concept with a lot of my friends who are preterists, by the way, they were like, whoa, wow, never thought of it quite like that. Once again, get this concept down. There is not an element of eschatology, of the last days, of salvation and the establishment of the kingdom. There's not one constituent element that is not linked in Old Testament prophecy, as well as the New that draws on the Old, that is not linked to the time of the destruction of Jerusalem. Now, in order to verify this, all right, now I can spend an awful long time, and I could just simply read from this book, all right? But I don't want to extend this too much. But just keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that when we're talking about the kingdom, when we are talking about salvation, when we're talking about the new creation, we are talking about Shemeni Atzerat, which foreshadowed the new creation, the new beginning. But I do document this extensively, heavily in this book. Now, what do we find? And let's just limit our focus to Isaiah chapters 2 through 4. Initially, I'm going to expand it. But in Isaiah chapter 2, 2 through 4, and this is a united prophecy, what do we find? Well, Isaiah chapter 2 and 3. It shall come to pass in the last days. So what's the setting of it? It shall come to, I keep trying to turn over there. I can quote it. It shall come to pass in the last days that the mount of the Lord's house shall be established in the tops of the mountain and exalted above the hills. What is the mountain of the Lord's house? It's the Messianic temple. It's the Messianic kingdom. This is an eschatological element, right? An eschatological tenet. There's no question about that. So here's the prophecy and prediction of the Messianic kingdom and the Messianic temple. Well, when would this take place? Well, let's see. In Isaiah chapter 2, still the context, notice verses 9 and 10. I'm sorry, verse 10. Enter the rock, hide in the dust from the terror of the Lord, for the glory and from the glory of his majesty. The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. For the day of the Lord of hosts. Okay, so now we have not only the establishment of the Messianic kingdom, not only do we find the Messianic temple, but now we find the day of the Lord. See how these constituent elements are tied together. By the way, Isaiah chapter 2 through 4 is tied together by the little term, in that day. Each of those references is related to the same identical time period. Just read Isaiah chapters 2 through 4. Take your, pen, your ruler, underline the little term, it shall come to pass in that day, or simply in that day. Because it's all tied together with that little referent. Okay, now, so in verses 9 through 12, we have the day of the Lord. Now watch this, verse 19 and following. They shall go into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake terribly the earth. In that day, a man shall cast his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats, to go into the clefts of the rocks, into the tops of the ragged rocks, for the fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty, when he rises to shake terribly the earth. So now, we have the constituent elements of the last days, the establishment of the Messianic kingdom, the establishment of the Messianic temple, and we have the day of the Lord when he arises to shake the earth terribly. Well, folks, this is 2 Peter chapter 3. What does 2 Peter 3 say? In the day of the Lord, the day of the Lord, which is Isaiah chapter 2, the earth and the elements that are therein shall be burned up. And someone may say, oh, well, yeah, but Isaiah 2 is talking about the earth being shaken. Well, what does that mean? Well, in Hebrew idiom, to be shaken means to be removed. Gone. Okay? Hebrews chapter 12, 25 and following proves this. And someone still says, well, yeah, okay, the earth would be removed, shaken, but 2 Peter 3 is being burned up. Does that mean they're different? Folks, do you realize that biblically it describes the end times, day of the Lord, and the passing of heaven and earth as described in 5 distinctly different and separate ways? Shaken, dissolved, burned up. Let me see, what were the other two? Had them right on the tip of my tongue. Oh yeah, grow old, be folded up. That's 4. That's enough. Should we say, well, Hebrews 1 talks about the earth, heaven and earth being folded up. Does that mean it's not the day of the Lord of 2 Peter 3, of the earth and the elements being burned up? and the earth and the elements being burned up. That's not being shaken, removed. Folks, what kind of hermeneutic is that? Do you realize that if we're going to say, well, being shaken is not the same as being burned up, and being burned up is not the same as growing old and being folded up, well, they're not technically the same if you're going to be literal, but they all have the same end game in mind. But here's the point. Here are all of these different constituent elements. Last days, Messianic temple, Messianic kingdom, the day of the Lord, the earth being shaken mightily, earth being removed. Now, when would this be? This is critical. What's the association here? The association is found in chapter 3. For behold, the Lord of hosts does take away from Jerusalem and from Judah the stay and the staff, the whole stay of bread and the whole stay of water, the mighty man and the man of man, the judge, the prophet, the prudent, the ancient, the captain of 50, the honorable man, and the counselor, the cunning artificer, and the eloquent orator. And I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall be ruled over them, and the people shall be oppressed, every one of them. Now look at verse 13. The Lord stands up to plead, and he stands to judge the people. The Lord will enter into judgment with the ancients of his people and princes thereof, for you have eaten up the vineyard, and the spoil of the poor is in your houses. Okay. Then he says, and it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well set hair, baldness, instead of a stomach or a girdle of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty, and the men shall fall by the edge of the sword. Folks, here's one of the most critical, one of the most foundational Old Testament prophecies of eschatology. Day of the Lord, day of judgment. Messianic kingdom, Messianic temple, the day of the Lord when the earth would be shaken mightily. Oh, and by the way, in chapter 4, it's the time of the revelation of the branch of the Lord. You know, Jesus, that beautiful living thing from the Hebrew word shemash. And it would be the time when God would remove the blood guilt from Jerusalem by the spirit of judgment and the spirit of fire. And he would establish in Jerusalem a tent, a wedding sukkah. This is the time of the wedding, the eschatological wedding. You know, this is Revelation 19. Let us rejoice and be glad, for the time of the wedding of the Lamb has come. So, we have all of these eschatological elements. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Messianic temple, Messianic kingdom, wedding of the Lamb, Shuppah. But it's also time of the day of the Lord. It's the time in which the Lord would arise to shake the earth mightily. It's the time in which the Lord would destroy Jerusalem. There would be a time of famine. There would be a time of famine of water and bread. The men would fall by the edge of the sword when the Lord would rise to judge his people, and it would be the time in which God would avenge the blood of the martyrs. That's what chapter 4, verse 4 is all about. He would remove the blood guilt from Jerusalem by the spirit of judgment and the spirit of fire. Folks, And that's, again, the time of the wedding. You see the good news and the bad news? That's what this is. This is Yahweh saying, I have some really wonderful news for you. The kingdom's coming. The temple is going to be established. The righteous branch shall rise. Marvelous news. Oh, by the way, it would be at the time in which the Lord would sweep away the old covenant form, the rebels, the sinners, those who would reject the call of God. Like I said, I document all of this in this book. These are the days when all things must be fulfilled. I dare say, you get a copy of this book, you read it, have your Bible laying there, read it carefully, read it critically, and comparing it with what I share with you in this book, and you will find that you will have to have a brand new outlook and a brand new view of the new creation. Okay? Hey, out of time for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you on the flip side.